The history of book banning dates all the way back to 1650 when books were banned for religious reasons. A pamphlet was created arguing that, quote, anyone who was obedient to God and followed Christian teachings on earth could get into heaven. With a major disagreement of this belief, the pamphlet was then burned and banned, making this event one of the first book banning events in history. In later years, around 1850, the very famous novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, which exposed the harsh reality of slavery, was also burned and banned by slaveholders, along with other anti slavery books as well. By the 1920s, book banning became largely known in Boston as authors would even print their books including taboo topics that they knew would get banned, hoping that it would give them more publicity. Now, in the 20th century, there have still been constant battles about what books should and should not be in libraries. How long has this been an issue in our schools, though? In 1982, a group of students sued a New York school board for removing books from school libraries. This case was called Island Trees Union Free School District versus Pico, in which it was ruled in Pico's side, where the judge of the case basically stated that removing books because they disagreed with the ideas in them was a violation of the First Amendment. This was one of the first issues seen in schools overturning the support of book bans. There are many parties involved that are both helping and hurting the issue of book banning. One of the largest helping parties is called the American Library Association, in which in 2022, the ALA partnered with 25 other groups, including American Federation of Teachers and the Authors Guild, with the goal of preserving the freedom to read. They created a campaign called Unite Against Book Bans to bring awareness to the increase of book bans in schools and libraries. On the other hand, there are also parties hurting the issue as well. Three advocacy groups that have played a significant role in advancing these book bans are Moms for Liberty, Citizens Defending Freedom, and Parents' Rights in Education. Moms for Liberty and Citizens Defending Freedom also supported the broadening of Florida's Don't Say Gay legislation, originally prohibiting conversations about LGBTQ plus individuals and culture in K through 3rd grade classrooms, which show they are working toward the banning of what they deem inappropriate. In 2022, Ron DeSantis, a Republican politician, appointed a representative from Moms for Liberty to the Board of Education, putting a Hardy Party representative in a higher power position.
The state of book bans in the United States are based upon the amount of books banned in schools statewide. In the 2022-2023 school year, there were 3,362 books targeted and banned for censorship reasons, with more than 40% of these bans coming from the state of Florida alone. When further research was completed, it was found that over 70% of parents worldwide disagree with book banning as a whole. As of June 12, 2023, Illinois has become the first state to legislate against the banning of books. This law will go into effect January 1, 2024. In Illinois, there were 67 attempts to try and ban books during the 21-22 school year. Anastava Murray, a representative of Downers Grove, Illinois, argues that our books in our schools should be carefully chosen by librarians and not politicians. Of recent news, the publishing company Penguin Random House, along with Jodi Picoult and Hank Green, have decided to join alongside teachers and students to file a federal lawsuit against Iowa's new book banning law. A quote from J.B. Pritzker says that here in Illinois, we do not hide from the truth, we embrace it. He wants young people to become critical thinkers and educated on America's past, present, and future. With book bans in place, the ability to do this is extremely restricted. Singer Pink also gave away 2,000 books that are banned in the state of Florida at her show in Miami 2 weeks ago, saying, "We have made so many strides toward equality in this country, and no one should want to see that progress reversed." As both a mother and a prominent figure in the media, her words and actions are combating these unfair laws. Finally, a quote from novelist Lori Halse Anderson in response to her book Speak, a story about a young girl battling with the experience of being sexually assaulted. This book is being banned from various schools in Iowa. Anderson says, "I think that anybody who finds a book about a 13-year-old rape survivor as being pornographic needs some professional help. This quote alone can go the distance of showing how silent stories about prevalent experiences are in today's society."
Though many U.S. schools are afraid to address the book banning situation with their students, it doesn't mean that these students won't know about or be affected by this situation. The New York Times recently posted a public forum to hear the voices of young American students and what they had to say about their increasingly limited access to books. One student, Sabita from Ortho High School in Los Angeles, wrote, "In my opinion, banning books from libraries is not just a transparent way of telling students that there are facts that they want to hide, but also telling students, who will be the future leaders of the U.S., that they are incapable of fixing and knowing about such issues. They are purposely cornering authors who have been writing eye-opening books. Banning books is like taking privileges from someone who might want to read and learn from them." I think she did a great job of voicing her concerns and disappointment with our current situation. Additionally, these books are not just going to affect one kind of student. These bans are often targeted at books that speak directly on important topics like race, racism, sexuality, gender, and non-Christian religions. Students of countless cultural backgrounds will find it harder to find books that represent them, and likewise, students who are still being represented will have a harder time seeing those that are different from them in literature. Teachers spanning the country are finding themselves confused on what their next step should be. These constantly changing sets of rules lead to many educators being confused on what materials they can and can't provide their students with. While, of course, many teachers want to give their students access to diverse and inclusive stories, many are afraid to get in trouble with their district or union for doing so. According to a recent NPR article on this topic, roughly one quarter of teachers reported not understanding whether they are subject to such restrictions. And even in states that have enacted laws circumscribing lessons on race, gender, sexual orientation, just 30% of the surveyed teachers said that they knew for sure that the legislation was in place. This data is quite worrisome because if there isn't an understanding of what's allowed or expected of teachers, then there will most likely be a great discrepancy in what children are learning across the US. To add to this, even teachers who do know what their school's stance on the topic will be forced to make a decision between doing what they think is correct or doing what they think will avoid conflict. Many are facing fears of not properly teaching their students or fears of losing their job entirely.
The American Library Association reported record breaking numbers for attempts to ban books in 2022, up 38% from the previous year. If trends continue, the number of banned books will also grow, in turn, restricting students' exposure to important viewpoints in our society. Experts question the future of our culture without access to certain titles, particularly the ones focused on people of color and the LGBTQ community. There are ongoing legal battles over censorship and freedom of expression that will continue to shape the outcome of banning books. Our court system has to interpret and apply laws to make decisions about what's allowed on our bookshelves. As for students, if we continue to ban books, we are limiting access to diverse ideas, perspectives, and cultures, reducing quality of education. For some students, books being labeled as banned causes more curiosity for the forbidden material, creating a greater desire to read banned books independently. It is important for us to learn about book bans because teachers play a large role in fostering academic freedom. This involves having the ability to choose materials that are academically valuable to students. Understanding the reasons for book banning helps teachers navigate cultural sensitivity and inclusivity in their classrooms. Materials selected must respect the identities and experiences of all students.